Action Jack, good to have you.
Good morning, John. Good to be with you.
Okay, now, Jack, I'm a little intrigued here. You put a statement out and also picked up in the Washington Post by our good friend Laura Vizella. By the way, Jack, you don't have to comment on this. It's just my comment. Laura Vizella, one of the best writers in America. Fair, balanced, does her research. She's got a nice, breezy style. I always read her stuff. She's a very talented writer and not part of the fake news community. Now, you're offering $1,000 reward for a photograph of who?
Well, we know for sure that the Attorney General Herring had appeared somewhere in blackface. He admitted it, and we're just looking for the photograph that proves it.
Well, but tell us about this $1,000.
Well, again, we were hopeful, have been hopeful that somebody just with a good sense of public service and decency would come forward and say, "Hey, here's the picture that the Attorney General admitted he was in," but it hasn't made it to the public domain yet. So we thought, well, we're not going to leave any stone unturned. The Attorney General has said he's still going to run for governor. We think that the citizens of the Commonwealth ought to have an opportunity to see the Attorney General's past, even if he's doing his best to cover it up.
All right, so your thesis here, Action Jack, is that Mark Herring would have never admitted this if somebody didn't confront him with a photo or said they have seen a photo, right? I mean, he just did it after 35 years, come out of the blue one day and say, "Oh, my goodness, this has been haunting me for 35 years, and I, too, done blackface. And so just on my own volition, I'm coming forward." You believe that he's been confronted with a photo, and that's why he did that, right?
Exactly. I mean, again, you look at the sequence of events. You know, the governor had his blackface yearbook come out. Then he does his press conference the next day where he admits perhaps he may not have been in the photograph in the yearbook, but, of course, he had done the Michael Jackson blackface in San Antonio. And so then the Attorney General comes out, as every other national Democrat did, called on the governor to resign. Clearly, the Attorney General was calling on the governor to resign because of the blackface episode, whether it was the yearbook or the Michael Jackson. And now the Attorney General, a couple of days later, has to run down to the Legislative Black Caucus when it turns out perhaps his backstory, his blackface issues at UVA or whatever, might be coming to light when he had been contacted with some specific questions from some reporters. And so rather than admitting to it to the reporters, he runs down the hall, talks to the Legislative Black Caucus, tears in his eyes, and has his epiphany on his past racial discrimination and racist activity. So clearly now he's trying to dissemble a little bit more and say, well, I really wasn't calling on the governor to resign about the blackface. I called on the governor because of his conflicting stories. Well, if you look at his statement, there's nothing in it that distinguishes his statement from every other statement that said the governor needs to resign because of the blackface episode. So the Attorney General's trying to have it both ways, and we just think he's not being truthful with the citizens of Virginia.
Is he a liar?
Well, if you're not telling the truth, I guess you're a liar.
All right, so let me read his statement calling for Ralph Northam to resign as governor after the Moonwalk press conference. It is no longer possible for Governor Northam to lead our Commonwealth, and it is time for him to step down. Now, this is his press release an hour after the Moonwalk press conference by Governor Tunnels. And we call him Governor Tunnels, Action Jack, because in order to get in and out of the governor's mansion, he can't show his white face. He has to go through a tunnel. And by the way, we've also got a nickname for the First Lady, bless her heart, Pam Northam, wonderful lady, helped me quit smoking. Thank you, Pam. Cotton Ball Pam. Now, he says, I have spoken with Lieutenant Governor Fairfax and assured him that should he ascend to the governorship, he will have my complete support and commitment to ensuring his success of our Commonwealth. Now, where in this does it say anything about his press conference, moonwalk, double standards? It's basically, he says, the governor can no longer lead our Commonwealth. So he doesn't explain that, and you assume that's because he did the blackface.
Well,
then
that's
he
what
does
every
a
other
blackface.
national Democrat said. I mean, again, I would say if the Attorney General wanted to distinguish his call for the resignation on the flip-flopping of the two statements, he could have easily done that. But all he did was essentially mimic what every other Democrat in the United States, essentially, any national Democrat, and all of those in the Commonwealth of Virginia, basically saying the governor needed to resign because of the blackface, not because of some flip-flop of statements from a Friday to Saturday. And so that's what the Attorney General meant when he called for the resignation, and now he's trying to, given his own blackface episode, suggest that, well, the blackface itself is not a disqualifier for elected office. It's if you say one thing one day and say something different the next day. Well, if that's the standard, the Attorney General needs to go for that reason, too.
Well, he said it happened 35 years ago, and it haunted him for 35 years. Well, he had 35 years to own up to it. He only owns up to it after reports alleged reporters were calling him saying that they had a photo, or that somebody had a photo and called them with it, and they were asking about it. Then he decides to do it. So I guess it was all those elections he had, right, for state senate, and he ran in the Democratic primary for attorney general, ran for attorney general, ran for re-election as attorney. All those elections he had, all those primaries, he couldn't have mentioned it then, right? He only mentions it after this whole Northam aspect. I mean, the hypocrisy of this guy is beyond the pale. I mean, like, how do you get up every day and even take this guy seriously? I mean, anything he does now to me, you can't take it seriously because of the lying, two-faced, yellow-belly nature of what he did. It would be one thing if he stood behind Ralph Northam, by the way, who was a friend of his. So he threw Northam under the bus for his own political gain when it was convenient for him, threw him under the bus, did the same thing, and then said, "What me worry?" I mean, you got to be kidding me, man.
Well, that's it. You hit all the right buttons. The hypocrisy is unbelievable. And again, I think the Attorney General figured his past was well covered, that it would not come to light, and so he felt confident in calling on the governor's resignation. Clearly, he made a miscalculation that his past had not been completely covered up, and somebody was going to reveal it, and so that's when he goes blubbering to the Legislative Black Caucus. But if the Attorney General's got his blind ambition to become governor, nothing's going to stand in the way. A lie here and a lie there is all that's necessary. Then he's going to move forward and do what he needs to do politically if he can stay alive, and that's what he wants to do. So we're calling him out on it, and we're hoping that somebody in the Commonwealth will decide that it's in the best interest of the Commonwealth to come forward with the photographs.
Well, lying to gain power, that's the new Virginia way. You know, when I came here, they said, now, John, this isn't Georgia. There's a Virginia way. Well, now I've kind of find out what it is. What they really meant was the Three Stooges up there. So here's what Lamont Bagby said, and I love Lamont. He's a great guy. Democrat House member, Jack, I know you know him, and from the Henrico area, and he actually replaced Morrissey in his district, who follows me, by the way, at 10:05, the Fighting Joe Morrissey Show. He says, this is what Lamont said the other day, also chairman of the Black Caucus. He says, to be frank with you, I was expecting there to be a picture to follow his announcement. This is the Herring announcement. Bagby says he's chairman of the Black Caucus. And he said, the fact that there wasn't a picture leads me to give him the benefit of the doubt. As he told the Black Caucus, it was weighing on him, and he felt the urgency to share it. Now, here's the rub, okay? If indeed there's no picture and there's no witnesses, and this was really bothering him and he just wanted to get it out, okay, then that, you might give him the benefit of the doubt. But I don't think there's anybody that seriously believes he would have done this and come out had he not been confronted with a picture. In fact, we have heard that there were two pictures. One of them we heard, this is alleged, that they were able to track down. The other one they can't find. So, if I were gambling on it, I would bet that he was confronted with a picture, and that's why he came forward, and therein lies the hypocrisy of it. But look, if you're Lamont Bagby, there's no picture. I mean, without a picture, you got to say, okay, maybe he did this under his own volition without pressure, but I don't see that at all.
Well, you can't. I mean, that would just be far-fetched in the environment that all of this occurred. With all the blackface going around, the yearbooks being investigated, reporters calling the Attorney General about specifics in perhaps a picture. There's no way the Attorney General came to his epiphany 35 years later. He recognized that he needed to get in front of the story, a story that was likely to break if he couldn't contain it. Obviously, he was doing all he could to contain it. He had done that prior. He's obviously done a fairly good job of containing it since that the picture hasn't surfaced, but clearly it exists. He would not have run and pled for his political life in front of the Legislative Black Caucus if he didn't have a real concern that something was about ready to break. So had he wanted to come clean, he could have done that after the session was over in preparation for running for governor, but he did it because he knew he was about to get caught.
No question about it. I've got one caller with a question. I'm gonna merge him in. That's Stan of Virginia Beach. I've also got a text here I want to read. This is from Amy in Fairfax. We're with Action Jack Wilson. He is the chairman of the Republican Party of Virginia. Amy in Fairfax says, could you ask Chairman Wilson to comment on the Fairfax County Republican Committee doing their own thing, not working with the state committee? Amy in Fairfax.
What's that?
Amy? Are you there, Jack? Did we...
John?
Yes, did we lose Jack? Okay,
well, actually, this is Stan.
Okay, Stan in Virginia Beach. Stan, go ahead. You're on the air.
Okay, yeah. Hey, I just wanted to say a couple things with the Mark Herring thing. I think that, like you guys are talking about, that there's got to be something else out there too, because I think he said, he admitted to this, thinking that everybody will stop looking. He's like, okay, look, I got this over here. Don't look anymore. There's that. And then the other thing I've always wondered about the Mark Herring situation, he said he did the blackface because he just loved this famous rapper. I hear that term, the famous rapper. Who is it? See, I want somebody to ask him, who is this famous rapper? Just to see what kind of answer you get. What do you think?
I'm going to turn that one over to Jack. What do you think, Jack?
Well, I only heard part of that. I got disconnected. I don't know if the Russians are messing with us or what, but I heard I think the Attorney General has identified who he was impersonating, the rapper. I don't know. I don't listen to rap, didn't then, don't now, so I'm not sure exactly who the rapper is, but I think the name is out in the public domain, so we could probably find that. I did also hear the question, I guess, from I think it was Amy up in Fairfax who had sent you a text.
Yes.
I think the Fairfax committee is working hard. I'm actually going to be meeting with the Fairfax committee at some point in the not-too-distant future to make sure that we're all on the same page coming into November. Clearly, Fairfax and the jurisdictions up in Northern Virginia are critical to retaining our majorities in the state Senate and the House of Delegates, and so they're going to be part of the team. They are part of the team, and we're just going to make sure that we're all working together.
Okay, let's get Terry in Chesapeake says the rapper is Curtis Blow.
That's the name I've heard. That's right.
Curtis Blow. Thank you, Terry in Chesapeake. I've got my callers doing our research on that. All right, so Action Jack Wilson, chairman of the Republican Party of Virginia, offering a $1,000 reward to anybody that can produce the blackface picture of Mark Herring in the venue that he claims it was in. Herring's spokesperson, Michael Kelly, by the way, a Braves fan, responded to a request for comment from Laura Vizella in the Washington Post with one word, seriously. So, Jack, how do you respond to that? Michael Kelly says, seriously?
The answer is yes, seriously.
Seriously. All right, Jack, I've only got a minute. Let's get to a minute and a half, actually, minute after I ask my question. So, tight, 1 minute. Can you keep the House, and how many seats do you predict you'll gain?
We will keep the House, and I am optimistic that at the end of the session we will have picked up we're at the end of the election picked up seats.
How many?
I think we can pick up 5. I think a good number of the 15 that we lost are ours to win back. Because of redistricting. Again, that's based on the redistricting decision by the court. Those will be more challenging. But I think we're going to end up with a 5 or 6 seat increase in the House of Delegates at least. And it may be more given what's happening with the Democrats at the top of the ticket. We may be looking at a pickup of as many as 10 if the Democrats stay in shambles the way they are.
I think 5's a good number. I've said minimum of 3, could be up to 8. I think 5 is a good number, and I think you're going to most likely end up with that. You got a couple of seats that are vulnerable because of the redistricting, but I think Kirk Cox wins. I have no idea about Chris Jones. He's not the most affable, lovable guy, so I could see him losing. But I think Barry Knight wins. Those are the 3 that are at risk. I think they win, and maybe you lose the Riley Ingram seat. But there's a lot of others you're going to gain. John Fredericks Radio Network, Action Jack Wilson, Chairman, Republican Party of Virginia, the Hoagster, Hogan Gidley, coming up.